Welcome back to the Sleeping Grush podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm still John.
One of these days.
Yeah, one of these days. Well, to be fair, from our perspective, there was no time in between 12 and 13.
Yes.
Because we're sitting here at Carpool, recording them back to back. So you had no opportunity in between last episode and this episode to give us an intro.
It's true. It's true.
Right.
Jaeger literally turned it off, counted down from 5, and we kicked back in.
Right. So,
there was no.
So you still have plenty of time to get out there and
get those ideas on a Discord.
Get those ideas on Discord.
Yep. John needs a name, a moniker.
Kind of strong. Be cooler than I'm still John, though. Yeah.
Well, welcome, folks. We're glad that you're with us. As John said, we're knee deep in the second episode today. Before John takes off for a couple
Parts unknown.
He's in the wind.
He's a nomad, a vagabond. I have my wind wagon outside full of all my earthly possessions.
As Richard says, a hobo.
Yes, not a vagrant. I'm a hobo. Yeah. Absolutely.
Folks, we are Jaeger's about to destroy over there.
I don't have a toothbrush in my pocket. I'm sorry. And if I look like Alan Rickson, I wouldn't be hanging out with you dorks.
This is so true.
Okay, right.
So true. Folks, we're glad you're with us today. We are going to be talking about something really interesting today, something that I think is going to be very informative to a lot of people, kind of a peek behind the curtain to what we do here at DGS. And that is how we bring a new faction, new to you to be played, a new faction to life. And it's something that we've done several times since I've been with the company. And obviously, John, this is, he's been doing it for 12 years now, getting these new factions out.
Oh my God, it's 12 years. Jeez Louise.
It's what's so cool? It's been 6, almost 7 years for me.
That's right. Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of new factions out. And every time that we bring a new faction out, it's awesome. Right? There's new stories to write. There's new stories to tell. There's new art. There's a new culture. There's new figures. It's just, for a guy that writes lore, it's heaven.
There's new ways to kill Buddy's models. I say stuff like that because he's a kung fu panda of my friends group. Nothing, stuff just bounces off of him. He can take it. And then so I said that about somebody else. Well, John's making fun, but Matt's like, whatever. Right? So let's just relax. Okay. But it's also true.
It's also true. So we're gonna peel back the curtain a little bit. We're gonna, the Great Oz scene there, with the dog Toto. He pulls back the curtain, and it's just the dude, speaking into the tin megaphone, right? Pulling the levers and all of that. And we're gonna shed some light on what it takes to bring a faction from concept to production. So why don't we talk about first how we choose what faction is going to come next?
Sure. But right before that, we're going to thank Cardboard Corner Cafe for hosting us because Matt skipped that when we started this. Yeah.
Right, because I'd done it like 30 minutes.
You just did it. Right? So we're down here at Cardboard Corner. We're recording 2 episodes back to back. And like you said in the intro, we literally ended the first episode. Jaeger counted us back down. We started again. And we're not on our game. The way we originally ended up, we're on a great game. It's just not looking like that. So I'll be the one thanking Cardboard Corner for hosting us in this great, one of their TTRPG rooms. They've got 2 in the back that they rent out. They let us use them for the podcast, but it's just a fantastic place to play games and do podcasts and hang out and have a drink. And they're
especially
great.
Have a drink. You could think maybe we had been doing that, but we actually.
I'm going to go back out and get one of those Storm Chaser mule.
I have a coffee in my hand.
I know. Right?
It should be better than this.
It should be. I also off our game on the drink game. So how do we choose? So we're going to take one thing off the table, maybe bring it back, but we got to talk about real quick the sponsored faction.
Yeah,
let's
talk about it.
So we had this program. We suspended it because it was too successful. But we suspended it where a player could provide us with some money, right? That's their part of the deal. And they get to say, they get to change the production schedule, introduce a model that's of interest to them, and then have a great say in its look and its background and its stats.
Yeah, work with us on the lore, the design,
all the different designs.
Yeah,
right. And in 3 cases, somebody sponsored an entire faction.
That's pretty awesome when you think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, is it 3?
Michelle.
Yep.
Right. Corona, the great Michigan car wash.
Bake sale.
Yeah, bake sale.
No, you're right. Corona, absolutely.
And one to be named later. Not too long from now.
You're probably going to see some stuff for it before you hear this.
Yes. So that is awesome and disruptive. Now, in the case of the Michelle and the Coronans, they were in the hopper. They're map, we call map factions.
Right.
They're on the known map now. What the people did who sponsored those was advance them in the production schedule and get them way earlier than they would have gone.
Right. They were very interested in what they said, what little we revealed.
Background. Yeah. Right. In the third case, almost from scratch. Almost from scratch. So while there were similarities in terms of if we choose a map faction, we do X. If we choose a brand new faction from scratch, we do Y. They were kind of instrumental in sort of disrupting the schedule and choosing to do those. Right. So the decision part of it was somebody just gave us a bunch of money. We're going to go take care of them, right? I mean, hey, somebody paid us. They need to be taken care of.
That's right.
So that's one decision.
That program.
So when that program was in place, if someone came in with the right size check and said, "I want to sponsor a faction," that's what we do, right? So the decision was shifting other factions in the current production plan down the road to make room for that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's happened 3 times that I can remember happening 3 times. So when we're not in that mode, we have both map factions that are, we talked about this last episode, factions that are, they have an established place on the map and lore in World Anvil.
Right. At least a summary.
At least a summary, if not something more substantial. So you can get their nature, And so you could choose from both. You're looking at this, why would you do this, non-map faction, something that's out there over something that you've been talking about forever.
Right.
Thormanol or Varkrel or Semidia, one of the subject kingdoms. So now, today, one of the primary inputs is the Chain Seeker Council.
That's right.
Wasn't always true because we didn't always have it. We're really glad we do. But we will go once a month to the Patreon subscribers who are at the Chain Seeker and World Builder levels, because the World Builder gets everything, whatever level, you get everything below that plus.
More. Yeah. So
those folks get on, we have a channel, private channel on Discord, and they have this meeting once a month where we'll ask them things like that. And what faction's next is a big ask.
It's a huge question.
Because these are fans of the game that are really, often they're also questers.
Mm-hmm.
They've committed a significant amount of money and time to being fans of the game and to playing the game and putting on events and being part of events. And so they are, super customers.
They're the tip of the spear.
The tip of the spear. Nice. And so asking them it's not like guaranteed if they say X, or the majority of them says X, we're going to do this, but it's a huge influencer. I always go to the Chain Seeker Council notes when we're choosing something that we've already talked about,
right,
to see what the input is. And very rarely do we do something that's counter to that.
Right.
We might have a split decision. We might have a thing we ask and we got, 50% of the Chain Seekers say X and 50% say Y. It's not very common.
That's not very often, yeah.
But it happens. And so if we had, if we go, hey, here's the choices, what faction would you like us to make next? And they were, 60%, 70% one way, that's probably
where we're going.
Okay. That's part of the deal of being, a Patreon subscriber, is having that level of input. So there may be other things involved. There may be background things involved.
Sure.
We're telling a certain story, and now it's time to fit that faction into the story.
Right.
There may be campaign, global campaign things involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but this the one we're releasing a new faction at Adepticon. I'm gonna let Matt handle that in a second. I want him to carefully craft how much he tells you, and I don't want to blow up. Okay. The one after that, we've actually decided on the one after that. And the one after that was significantly influenced by the players. I think the players made that call.
It was.
Okay.
They definitely did, because we've been talking about that faction for years.
Yes.
It's been in the background. There are models from that faction
In the game now.
They're in the game. But there were several factions that could have been said of.
Yes.
And the players definitely swayed us into this.
Mhm.
And I think that's amazing, especially because they're so different from anything that we've
Yes.
done.
Also
But that can also be
We basically told everybody which one it was just now. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's kind of what we do here, right? I'm spoiler man.
Yeah.
But that can be said of the one we're releasing at Adepticon too.
Yeah.
Right. With each new
Tell us about that one, Matt.
Okay, give me a second. I'll do that. With each new faction, we're doing new things, right? Because they need to be different.
Yeah.
They need to be unique. They need to play and feel culturally, militarily different than their compatriots around the rest of the map.
Right.
And so we're doing all these brand new things, and we'll talk later about playtesting and things like that, I'm sure. But for this new one, and I'm going to go ahead and name it, because by the time that people hear this,
Yeah, it's just 2 episodes from now. Right.
there is a video that's coming.
Yep.
That you're going to have already seen. It is the Azura, and the Azura are a bird people.
Anthropomorphic
birds. Right. And these were made in association with Brandon, who was the sponsor of this faction. And he came to us with this really great idea, this really cool idea. And
and money.
And money, of course, right? There's always money. But in context, it's really interesting, because we've heard from a lot of you through the Change Seeker Council, through the World Builders, through just talking with our customers and our fans, that they want more non-human characters, more non-human factions, something that's maybe more fantasy than what we've been traditionally doing.
Right.
And when Brandon brought this idea, I remember it so clearly too, because he contacted me on Discord and he's like, "Hey, I've got this idea, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? Where did these go?" And it was John Con weekend. And I came to you and I was like, "Brandon's got this idea. What do you think?" And you were like, "I'm down. Where are they going to go?" And I had an idea for that, right? I was like, I think they can fit here, because one of the things that
and that's just to the side from that, but I just got to say that's a big deal. It's a very, very key a moment in the development of faction, a non-map faction. If we were to do Thormanol next, we all know Thormanol is, right?
Everybody knows.
We were to do the Sultan of Smidia next, the Varkran Confederacy next. We know where they are,
right?
Azarm or Mishtad or Ischak. We know where they are.
Basically, right? People know that they're somewhere on that side.
This faction could have put them all kinds of places.
There was any number of ways that we could fit them into the world, but we always are careful to fit them into the world.
Yes.
That's something that we want to do. While we love making fantasy creatures and we love making fantasy games, we're telling a story.
Yep.
A meta narrative that things need to fit into.
Meta narrative.
Right?
Nice.
And so
not just a narrative.
Right. No, a meta narrative. Right. And so we talked about where these Azura would go and how they would fit into the culture. We talked very briefly at that John Con, because everybody was busy, about maybe how their religious influences would be, right? Because religion is a big part of our world, right? Religion matters.
Right.
So we talked about all of these things, and then we got back with Brandon, right? And Brandon was like, "Yes, right." And he was all for it and all in. And he's been a fantastic partner to work with through all of the concept art, all of the rules, the playtesting, and the lore. And we're just about to bring that vision of his to fruition. And it's a really exciting time, right? Because we've got everything ready to go. It's just right there. We're even starting production. And we're just now about to show it to you all, and you've seen a few things of it, and you're going to see a lot.
And
more.
if you were a Patreon subscriber, you've already seen it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Right.
That's something else that we
Let's
didn't
talk about
talk
that.
about, right? So we were just talking about the Change Seeker Council. And we were talking about the world builders, but we have 4 different levels on our Patreon, and all 4 of those levels get to see the concept art, the renders before everybody else. So,
Excuse me.
John's dying. It's okay. I'm just
dying.
gonna keep
Yeah.
talking, and he's
Yeah,
gonna
I passed away.
go over there, right? So 6 months out, you're starting to see concept art of new things that we're bringing out, and not just new factions, new models, right? So in another month, we're going to start putting up concept art for our Gen Con releases. Right. So that's how far out, as a Patreon subscriber, that you get to see what it is that we're doing. And a lot of people really love that. They want that behind the scenes look. They want the, hey, I saw it first, what's coming. And we do ask that they, not tell everybody about it. We appreciate your all's
Discretion.
your discretion on that. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, and you can do that by going to patreon.com/DGS games, you can get in on that, and you can see things before everybody else does.
Right.
And I think that's really cool, because of course this did not happen overnight.
Right.
We've been talking about the Azura for 2 years almost.
Really? Which John Con was it when you came to me?
It was not the Vulture's Nest. It was the one before. It was
Queen's birthday.
It was Queen's birthday.
Wow. Yeah, we have been at it a while.
I've been at it almost 2 years now. So these things don't happen quickly. It is a process that we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about that, right?
But you get to see it a little bit earlier than everybody else. And now that we're at the front end of it,
right?
We look back on it and we're like, wow,
yeah,
look at all this
all the things we have to do. Sure.
So let's talk about all these things that we have to do. So speaking of the Azura, and the Azura are a corner case because they are sponsored.
Right.
And
but once a decision's made, the steps are all pretty much the same.
They are.
So this part's the same regardless of whether we chose one that was on the map or we chose one some other way.
Right.
Ultimately, from a business perspective, the first thing that we're going to do with that faction from a money-making standpoint is sell you the starter set of the first 6 models.
That's right.
First 6, it depends. Usually 6. And so we need, if we don't already have it, we need a faction symbol.
Right.
We need 6 pieces of concept art. And in order to have 6 pieces of concept art, we have to be able to tell the artist what the hell they're drawing.
That's right. Which is
one of
sometimes
us,
easy and sometimes not.
One of us is one of us on the design team. And before Colin and Jeff joined us, they joined us both over time. It was me, right? But it can be any one of the 3 of us, or in combination sometimes. Usually one of us is picked to be the lead from drawing up the initial rules. And so you start with the pattern because it fits at 150 gold. And this is one of those interesting things. In the business of game, the game company is in, and this is true of a lot of creative enterprises, there's design and there's development. And you've heard me say this before.
I live it every day.
Design is me, right? I toss back a couple of CBD gummies. I put on my rose glasses. I kick back and I go, whoa, what if we had a faction that was half rat, half snake? And right? Okay, and then we're only 2 points apiece. The starter box up to 50 models in it, right? And so then you have development. And development's Julie.
Right.
And I'm simplifying. I'm also mocking, but
just a little.
I'm simplifying. The practical, production end has to come in and say no.
Right.
Okay. We're not going to be able. We want to sell a starter set. There's no reason for this case to deviate from that. That sim. Sometimes it might be, but not in this case. So we're not putting 50 models in that, 6 by 1 by whatever box, 6 by 4 by 1. So ratchet it back, buddy. Okay. So there's a standard template, and the players know this for most of the factions: leader, caster, 2 heroes, 2 followers.
Right.
Okay. Now, they're not all that way, right? That's your start point. and it has to add to 150 gold. That's not a development goal.
Right.
I can't come in here with 6 30-point models,
Right.
right? Now to make a starter set. Okay. So over time, we kind of have a template for how that starts out, but then you don't want to have them all be cookie cutter.
Sure.
So what's the shtick? What's the thing? And of course, with the Azura, they fly.
Right.
So that was kind of, you have wings.
Feathers.
Yeah, right. Feathers are okay if they're on your back or your forehead. They're not okay in your hat. That's for Jennifer. Okay. Right? I thought you hated feathers. Not on the bird people.
If they're part of a living organism.
That's right, yes. If you pluck them out of your body, they're good. If you pluck them out of your hat, they're bad. So anyway, it's an inside joke. I'm known for not liking feathered hats. Long story, we'll tell another episode. So one of us has to design the starter set because you have to be able to say to the artist what these 6 models look like.
Right.
And in order for them to be right, you had to tell them what weapons, what armor, what look.
Right.
You know, who's a follower, who's a hero, who's a caster, what kind of magic.
Right.
Right. Is it one of the hybrids? Is it pure? You know, all makes a difference. And so if it's a map faction, we kind of have that planned out. Mm-hmm. If it's a off map but known faction, like what's out west and what's out east, or one of the subject kingdoms, we kind of have that sort of sketched out, but not in every case. There's some leeway. And if it comes to, in this case, a sponsored fact, we're just going to say,
sky's the limit.
It's Sunchain, baby. You know? So we knew, and I want to say that the first faction stats, and this is Colin's baby from design, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so not me. And I've done enough of them. I mean, the other guys need to have their time in the sun there. So he's got the constraint of, I got to come in. And then you're on a parallel track. Once that kind of settles, and in this case, Colin is also working with Brandon to come up with the weapons.
Right.
Because it's not just going to be birds or swords. We'll make something cool.
We got to make something different.
You know, right? And so they're negotiating that fairly quickly because that has to get set. Because how that looks is you go have the concept art through concept art, and then you turn around and change your mind. Oh, no, he's got a spear instead of a sword, or those guys don't have shields. The concept art's wrong. Then you spent money on this and you're not going to use it.
Right.
So
that slows down the process for
everybody else. So then you're going to go the one direction. You go Jen, Matt, Green. Jen's going to get us the concept art and get the masters rolling with the sculptors, and Matt's going to be worrying about the production of the models. And on the other side, you've got Colin making the faction, and Jeff and I helping him, and the play testers.
Right.
Because simultaneously with the development of the look, the art, the sculpture, and the production, you have, let's get the rules right.
Right. You got to play these things.
And if you run into a wall, and this model isn't working from a playtest perspective, you get to figure out how to solve it inside 150 gold.
Right.
It's a limiter. It's a cap.
It is.
Right. So you got to say, well, that's not really working. We really need to give it this talent. But if that's going to be something added to it, then something's coming off another model in the package, right? And that's just part of the deal. So there's a little bit art and science, both to those things. And so the more you can do before you say, okay, Jen, here's the concept art, go, right? Before you do that, the more you can do up front with just the stats and just the, ideas of how these things would play out before you tell anybody how they look, the better.
Right.
Because you're less likely to get into a snag. I just can't have that model have 2 weapons, whatever.
Right.
They just can't fly 10. They're all going to be too expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So there's practical limiters. There absolutely are.
Sure.
How many fit in the box? How much they cost? How many? And how much time are you going to have available to play test them? Because we don't want to nerf them out of the box.
No, we don't.
Talk about other companies that do that. So the good news is, after 16 factions, we kind of have some experience. So we have a good concept. Colin and Jeff are super capable designers. They're going to get a really good solution early. It's not going to be the final one, the one we end up with, but along the way, they're not going to make that many changes.
Right.
Because they're going to get it mostly right up front. So once that happens, but really the stat summary really kind of has to be where it starts, because that dictates so much of the practical aspects of the models. Not how they're posed, right? How they're clothed in terms of the colors and the fabrics, but how they're armored, you know,
And how they play.
and how they play, right? How they play. Because if we decide that this weapon doesn't work or that talent doesn't work, then we're kind of in a box. We kind of have to work our way back out of that. And we're messing with point values on other models we didn't necessarily want to change,
Right.
That kind of thing. So I like the parallel track is very interesting because the art director, the art dictator,
The dictator, yes.
yeah, he does not want to hear about your coming back and saying, "I'm sorry, that guy really isn't working on it." That's just not going to fly.
Right.
He's going to murder you, feed her to your pigs, and you'll be just so much soil in Centerville, Kansas. And then, of course, she's got the issue of I have this beautiful piece of art, but if I have to put this in a silicone mold, do I have to cut it? Is this arm going to fit? Is this piece too spindly? Coming off the model. And she and Matt are working on that, and Colin and Jeff are out breaking the game somewhere.
Right.
So
moved on to the next one.
That's right. Yeah, I've broken this game. Time to make another one.
They're working on the next year's, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we're done with that. It's so last year. So 2024. Yeah. It's exactly what you're doing.
So once you get all of those things worked out, how do we land that monster? How do we what's the final steps in bringing that to our customers?
Well, we're talking about in terms of production. We're talking about, there's a lot of little things, a lot of people don't consider. We have to make a box for starter sets.
We do, which means we need art.
Right. So we need a piece of cover art. We used to take photographs of the models. We've kind of upped the game a little bit. We do an illustration for the faction, for the cover of the box.
Which I love.
Yes, they're all awesome. They're Neo now. They're all beautiful.
It's incredible.
And so, like in the case of Azura, we also need a faction icon.
Right.
Because it wasn't an on-map faction.
It's really
it is a cool icon. So we needed both those pieces in order to do the graphic part of the box design, and then also to we need to render images back from the sculptors so that you can tease them to the Patreon subscribers.
Sure.
We have to send out these are coming out to our retailers, right, to know that
announcement.
Order them in advance. Releases, and we've gotten into the habit of releasing the factions at Adepticon. It wasn't always true.
It wasn't always true,
but it is now.
Well, and that's because for us, Adepticon is the biggie of the year. It's not our largest con, but in terms
it's not the largest con with the most number of people attendance. Right. But it is our biggest con in terms of everything else.
Exactly. It is our big tournament. It's our big our clientele, right? Because everybody that's in there is a miniatures game. Right?
Yes, that's the thing.
Right. So
that's the big difference between Adepticon and Gen Con for us. 70,000 people at Gen Con, only a few thousand at Adepticon, but everybody at Adepticon is a miniatures gamer.
Right.
A sci-fi fantasy miniatures gamer to a large degree, not everybody. And so that's our customer.
It is.
Customer base.
And so what that amounts to is that at this Adepticon, coming up in 40 days from
today when we're recording.
Right.
Even closer when you hear it.
Right. We're going to have this brand new faction, the Azura, for you to purchase, to play. And my God, it's beautiful.
It is.
I think people are really going to like just how unique it is and how different it is from some of the other things that we're doing.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be a huge draw. I'm seeing some of the posters and the banners that we've got coming in for that.
Yep.
And nobody's going to be able to escape. See,
here's an interesting thing here that kind of was serendipitous. We didn't plan it this way. When Neo, if you look at the art, the illustration for the faction, where the 6 models are doing their thing, and that's going to be the cover of the box. The caster is kind of centerpieced. Eyes are glowing. Reminds me of Secret of Nim.
It does.
Awesome.
It is.
Doesn't it?
Exactly what
it's the bird. And the thing is, Secret of Nim was a big movie in my house when my kids were young. I've always loved it. I always did an impersonation of Rickles' character, the Raven, right? Crow. And there was just, we were big fans of it. You know, I secretly liked the fact that it was this awful government organization is really what was behind it. Because, you know, if you're going to make somebody the bad guy, don't use someone of the, you know, Earth cultures picking our government, right?
Right.
Which I'm a member for not much longer. And then, but there's another one like leaping right above him.
Mm-hmm.
So in many of the other illustrations, they're kind of spread across the illustration. And this one, you had one on top of the other, which made doing a new banner stand easy.
Yeah.
Because they're, I don't know, 62 inches, but only like 24 or 22 across.
Right.
And so it's a very weird proportion for an image.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have the bear mystic from my original illustration, but this illustration isn't that tall. So we had to do weird graphic design things to make that work.
Right.
To center it on her. She's part of a larger, she's battling with a fire wizard, you know,
Right.
staring down a fire wizard in the grander illustration, but the section of the banner stand. And I'm like looking at that. Julie's like, we need a banner stand. What are we going to do? We don't wait a minute. I said, check this out. She goes, oh, that's it. That's it.
That's right.
So, that we could probably plan that better in the future. I don't ever want to put another restriction on Neo. You just give Neo the minimum, and you're going to get something amazing.
Yeah, he comes in through every time.
Every time. So I wouldn't want to do that, but we got lucky with that.
We did. It was beautiful. So, guys, we're coming up on time here, and gosh, I'm excited for the Azura, for Adepticon. We're really, really excited for you all to see this brand new faction, how they play,
Right.
Where they're from, how they interact with the rest of the world. It's all very unique. We think you're really going to enjoy it. From this moment, it's only 40 days,
Right.
but
yeah, I want to add a couple things real quick. I know we're out of time, but I want to add two more quick things. One is, if you want to be involved, there's playtesters who are working with Colin to get the rules right.
yes.
You know? Then, of course, Matt was talking about our Patreon subscribers who get to see these things earlier.
Right.
And if you're a change seeker or world builder, you're part of the storytelling.
You're making stuff as we go.
And if it's your faction, you know, that you have the lead customer say, right, in that area. The other thing is there's another source we didn't touch on. We're not going to go into detail. Maybe we'll do another episode about it. It's the unsanctioned.
Right.
Okay, we have a number. There's a product in the download section, a free product that lists a bunch of factions that are currently not approved for official competitions, right? But they're approved for everything else.
Right.
Okay, whatever your quester, your event organizer, you know, wants to allow is in that book. We just haven't balanced them yet. They haven't been through a rigorous play test yet, but they're not bad.
No.
You know, they're using the same point system, so they're going to be, if they're off at all, they're only going to be off by a little bit. The Green Hood, the Moyakat Illuminated, the Grove Guard, whatever, the Goliath,
yeah,
you know, the Grove Guards. There's just a number of them. Michelle Mogin, you know, that are ideas that were the results of the original world builders being able to make a unsanctioned faction. And they will all eventually get done, just not the same year, right? But there's another source. If you're interested in something that's out there, and when we ask you what's your opinion, you could be looking at the map, you could be hearing this episode and thinking about things off the map. You could also be reading
the
unsanctioned and taking a look at. And also, if you didn't know about it, go take a look at these cool things you can be playing.
Right.
We suggest what models to use until we make them, which we will.
And the unsanctioned is a free PDF download.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, so it doesn't cost you.
Just go to the download section. Right, it's right there, and there's a ton of stuff in
Rule
there.
supplement. Yep,
real cool stuff. All right, folks, we're out of time. Thank you very much for listening. Keep those comments coming in. Let us know on Discord how you're feeling about the podcast. And until we see you,
Sil Sakava.